Strange and forgotten professions, stories from history's odd jobs. Throughout history, countless professions have come and gone, leaving behind only faint memories of their once important roles. Some of these jobs were peculiar by today's standards, while others were downright bizarre, dangerous, or scandalous. The stories of these forgotten professions reveal a side of history that is often overlooked, filled with strange, surprising, and sometimes unsettling details. Here are 12 of the most intriguing stories about strange and forgotten professions. Number 1. The sinister side of resurrectionists. In the 18th and 19th centuries, resurrectionists, or body snatchers, were individuals who exhumed corpses to sell to medical schools for anatomical study. This was driven by the scarcity of legal cadavers, as executed criminals were the only legal source. The most infamous case involved William Burke and William Hare in Edinburgh, Scotland, between 1827 and 1828. Rather than robbing graves, they murdered 16 vulnerable individuals to sell their bodies. Burke was eventually caught, tried, and executed by hanging. Ironically, his body was publicly dissected, and his skeleton remains on display at the University of Edinburgh's Anatomical Museum, a fitting end for a man whose grim profession had caused so much fear. Number 2. The hazardous life of knocker UPS. Before the invention of alarm clocks, knocker UPS were employed to wake people by tapping on their windows with long sticks. This job, prevalent in 19th and early 20th century England, was often held by older men or women who needed extra income. One notable knocker-up, Mary Smith, worked in London and used a pea shooter to knock on windows. The job was not without hazards. Clients who overslept or were annoyed at being woken would sometimes throw water or other objects at the knocker-up. Despite these risks, the job was vital until alarm clocks became affordable, marking the end of this peculiar profession. Number 3. The grim reality of rat catchers. In Victorian England, rat catching was a necessary but dangerous job, especially in cities plagued by infestations. Rat catchers like Jack Black, who served as Queen Victoria's rat catcher, were at constant risk of contracting diseases such as the plague. Jack Black became famous for his eccentric methods, which included breeding and selling fancy rats as pets. Despite the grim and hazardous nature of the job, rat catchers played an essential role in maintaining public health, though they were often overlooked and undervalued by society. Number 4. The risky business of matchstick girls. Matchstick girls were young women and girls who worked in factories during the 19th century, exposed daily to white phosphorus, a toxic substance that caused phossy jaw, a horrific and often fatal condition. In 1888, the Bryant and May match factory in London became infamous for its dangerous working conditions. This led to a strike by 1,400 women and girls, which drew public attention to their plight. The resulting scandal forced the company to improve working conditions and eventually led to the banning of white phosphorus in matches, but not before many workers had suffered. Number 5. The eerie life of sin eaters. Sin eaters were individuals in 18th and 19th century Britain who were paid to symbolically take on the sins of the deceased, ensuring their passage to heaven. This eerie practice involved the sin eater eating bread and drinking ale placed on the corpse during the funeral. Sin eaters were typically outcasts, living in isolation and shunned by society, both feared and despised for their macabre role. As religious practices evolved, the profession faded away, but the haunting image of the sin eater continues to capture the imagination. Number 6. The dubious honor of the Gong farmer. Gong farmers in medieval England were tasked with removing human waste from cesspits and privies. It was a job often done by the most desperate, as it involved night work in dangerous and filthy conditions, with the constant risk of disease from toxic fumes and unsanitary environments. Gong farmers were required to work at night to avoid contact with the public, who viewed them with disdain. Despite their essential role in maintaining urban sanitation, Gong farmers were social outcasts, making this one of history's most unpleasant professions. Number 7. The dangerous job of the pinsetter. Before the invention of automatic pinsetting machines in the 1950s, bowling alleys employed pinsetters, often young boys or teenagers, to manually reset the pins after each roll. The job was hazardous, requiring quick reflexes to avoid being struck by flying pins or the heavy bowling balls. In the 1930s and 1940s, as bowling's popularity soared, pinsetters faced long hours in loud, dimly lit environments. The dangerous nature of the job, combined with low wages, made it a tough and often thankless position. The advent of automatic pinsetters made this job obsolete, but it remains a reminder of the perilous work that was once a part of everyday life. Number 8. The dangerous trade of chimney sweeps. In 18th and 19th century Britain, chimney sweeps were often young boys, some as young as 6, who were small enough to climb inside chimneys to clean them. This job was not only dangerous but also deadly, leading to many accidents and severe health problems, including respiratory issues and a form of cancer known as sootwort. Public outcry over the exploitation of child chimney sweeps eventually led to the passage of the Chimney Sweepers Act in 1875, which outlawed the practice. The profession remains a shocking example of the exploitation of vulnerable children in dangerous work. Number 9. The scandalous surgeons of the Barber Surgeons Guild. Before the 18th century, barbers were also surgeons, performing everything from bloodletting to amputations. The Barber Surgeons Guild, which existed from the Middle Ages, was filled with individuals who had minimal medical training. A particularly scandalous case occurred in 16th century London when a barber surgeon, during a routine bloodletting, accidentally severed a client's artery, leading to the patient's death. This and similar incidents caused public outcry, leading to stricter regulations and eventually the separation of barbering and surgery into distinct professions. This period marked the beginning of the transition toward modern medical practices. Number 10. The surprising popularity of the leech collector. Leech collecting was a thriving profession in 19th century rural England and Europe, where leeches were widely used in medical treatments. Leech collectors, often women, would wade into marshes and ponds, allowing the leeches to attach to their legs before collecting them for sale to doctors and apothecaries. The job came with significant risks, including blood loss, infection, and the potential for disease. Despite these dangers, the high demand for leeches in medicine kept this profession alive until the late 19th century when medical practices changed, making leech therapy less common. Number 11. Groom of the Stool, the King's most trusted confidant. The Groom of the Stool was one of the most intimate and powerful roles in the English royal court, serving from the reign of Henry VII through to the 18th century. This position involved attending to the king's personal hygiene, specifically assisting during bathroom visits. However, the role quickly evolved beyond its humble beginnings. Due to the groom's close proximity to the monarch, he became a trusted confidant and advisor, often influencing decisions on financial and political matters. Notable grooms, such as Sir Anthony Denny under Henry VIII, wielded considerable power, managing not just the king's personal needs but also state affairs. As royal privacy became more valued, the position eventually faded, but its legacy as a symbol of intimate royal trust remains intriguing. Number 12. Aircraft listener, the human radar before World War II. Before radar revolutionized air defense, aircraft listeners played a crucial role in detecting incoming enemy planes. In the 1930s, especially in Britain, these individuals used large concrete acoustic mirrors to listen for the sound of approaching aircraft. Positioned along coastlines, these structures helped provide early warnings, though often with only a few minutes to spare. The listeners had to quickly interpret the sounds to identify the type and distance of the aircraft. While effective to a degree, this method was rendered obsolete with the advent of radar technology just before World War II. The concrete sound mirrors remain as eerie monuments to this forgotten chapter of early 20th century defense.